He's not
you know
wrong.
what you're gonna get, and you just have to live with it.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, man.
Did you look see what happened in any other games? I have not really paid any attention at all.
Okay. I'm going to tweet this out.
Oh, and then let me retweet it.
I'll be Villanova at Villanova. West Virginia lost at Oklahoma. Florida got blown out at Illinois. Everybody sucks. That's the lesson.
That is the lesson.
I told you, good thing the bubble was weak.
God, it's getting worse. Michigan
Let me
State by 9.
You ready to get this started?
Yep.
All right, hold on a second.
Yeah, Auburn actually came back.
Let me mute my mic.
Okay, we're hot, so whenever you want to do it.
Okay.
That was quite the proclamation.
That was. And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another disappointed episode of the Assembly Call.
But live.
Today, yes, live
Disappointed
episode.
but live.
Disappointed but live here at Switchyard Brewing. As today, your Indiana Hoosiers fall to the Purdue Boilermakers 74-62 in a game that had an incredible atmosphere at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. The students brought it. The fans were ready to explode all day, and unfortunately, the team didn't give them many things to explode about today. Obviously, the story of today's game, the return of Bob Knight to Assembly Hall, which was an incredible moment at halftime. But unfortunately, Bob Knight was back at Assembly Hall, and the Hoosiers were not, as they just did not have enough today against a Purdue Boilermaker team that, hat tip to them, came in and played really well and were able to get the 12-point victory on the road. So can you guys hear okay?
We're working on volume.
Working on volume? Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's begin today's show how we begin every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. People here?
I think so.
Okay.
We're working on it.
You know, I thought about lots of things that you could do for the banner moment. Second half, when it gets to 56-50, Indiana playing with the small lineup. You know, they finally kind of get it back, get a little bit of momentum, go back to the first half when they were up 28-25. But no, the banner moment today was Bob Knight coming back at halftime, seeing so many great Indiana players just walk out. You know, I was sitting there with my buddy Evan at the game, and we just kind of kept elbowing each other like, hey, can that guy play? Think he can get back out on the court and play?
There was a few of those guys who looked like they could still go.
Yeah, a few of those guys who could. And, you know, I was wondering kind of how it was going to feel seeing Coach Knight back out there at, you know, on the Assembly Hall court. And it was a very emotional moment, you know, having grown up watching Indiana basketball and seeing so many games with him and knowing what's happened over the last 20, 25 years. It felt good seeing him back out there, and it felt right to see him out there with those guys, you know, and to see him be emotional in that moment and really seem to enjoy the moment, you know, be a little playful with the moment. I swear Dick Vitale was terrified for a second when Coach Knight grabbed his hands, and it was great to see. And when, you know, when the chant, to me, the big moment was the chant that rang out when everybody started saying, "Thank you, Coach." Because it felt a little bit, I don't know if you guys felt this, but it was almost kind of like the fans that were there didn't quite know how to react. Like they were cheering, and then it got a little bit quiet. And it's like, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what to do. And then someone started that "Thank you, Coach" chant, and that was perfect. And it was, you know, that to me on a day where the basketball wasn't very good, you know, at least we could indulge in that memory and thank him for everything that he did for the basketball program. And I guess in those moments, you know, dream and hope that someday it'll get back to that, because unfortunately it certainly wasn't today. So that is the banner moment. Our banner moment, as always, sponsored by our friends from Home Field Apparel. And Connor is right here. Connor, stand up. Say hi. Home Field Apparel, an Indiana-based brand They do everything out of Indianapolis. We love their gear. And look at this. So Connor is so awesome. He knows I like this, this long sleeve tee with the script Indiana. He made me one with the assembly call, which I really appreciate. He's got some shirts here. We're going to do some giveaways, but make sure that you guys go to homefieldapparel.com. They have so much great gear. Let's see, how many people here are wearing Home Field Apparel right now? We got the assembly call hoodie.
Sizable number of people.
A lot of people. I know I saw some Bison hoodies earlier.
Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff is so comfortable. They have unique logos you're not going to find anywhere else. Go to homefieldapparel.com. They are incredible.
I mean, only one member of the team wore it today. I'm just saying.
They know I got Home Field Apparel on under here.
Oh, well, it's obviously visible. But under your shirt. Good.
I sleep in Home Field Apparel. It's that comfortable.
All right, well, it is time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some thoughts from the rest of our team. At 5:02, I got a text from Ryan saying, "Where are you guys? Just stopped at the hotel." Apparently, he just did not realize we were doing this.
This is really under-publicized. I think that probably is the biggest difference.
So Ryan will be here. I think he just wanted to make an entrance, So Ryan is not here, but of course we have Andy and the coach. So let's do a little music. You guys want to hear some theme music for these guys? Yeah. Okay, let's do a little bit of theme music. Andy, your final line on today's Disappointing You. The great Bob Thompson is here. Where's Bob? Where's Bob? You're the man, Bob.
Certainly about 90s was really cool to be at. I took you guys, I don't really know if it was feasible, but there was, based on the way that the team played today, it would have been cool to see them out there cooking in the things that we said, even listening to most of those words about it seems that the IU team it just seemed, as we said, it was kind of odd that you come out of the locker room and just didn't seem like a lot of shoes on the head and had a lot of fire. We had a bottom of the seemed a little bit off. And that really is how it figured out when you go back to what we said. I mean, 56, 52 times that had the ball. This is just really to explode there. Whether they're focused on that made 16. And the reality about it is just and you watch some of the team, you mentioned this over here. You watch these two teams play, you just watch 10 times, 100 times already. And just the urgency with which they operate, which pains me to say quite a bit. Just the physicality usually dictated, the physicality of the game by you guys in the concept burden. He had 6 fouls in the first 8 minutes, and he really helped the one the rest of the game. I say that to Wendy, so I say that more because I really relaxed on the side. Spacing is doing an issue with the team, which is not really fun. It's not a little bit of the second half. Wasn't much to get for. So, one day, and I will be remiss, I didn't talk about the chasing the ball here. He obviously was far less of a deal. First one to be lower. Just slightly, it was just general pretty good abilities. Really appreciate it being here and taking us out of the song. So just know that no matter how far we're moving, how you come back to you can hear have a good time with the show. If anybody has other topics that we're talking about besides this game, I for one am going to.
All right.
it's a disappointing day when you lose. It's a disappointing day when you lose to that team from up north. All-around disappointing day in the guard play. We'll get into the technical stuff. The guard play was a little bit from my coaching perspective. But what is disappointing is looking out and seeing all of our listeners and followers coming out on a day like this to support us. So cheers to everyone. Cheers. It has been great to hear from you on social media. It's great to walk through and shake your hands, and we'll do that again here. But this is what I will tell you in my most optimistic look or the best view I can. This is why you root for Indiana, is this family of supporters. And yes, at 15-8 or 15-9, whatever we are, and playing bad 4-game losing streak, don't lose sight of the fact that we picked the right school to root for and stay with the program, even though we're going to talk about frustrating things, because you guys are the reason that we have a show, and it's the reason that Indiana basketball will get back at some point, hopefully soon. It's awesome. And then I'd also like to say a shout out to Mrs. Consoni. If you would stand, please. No, I promise I won't chase you through the but it might at the end of the day, so we're moving on a little bit. But without her support and the support of all of our significant other spouses, and it wouldn't be possible. So stay positive, complain about the guard play, complain about Archie subbing at 8 minutes, and put the guys in that cost us the game. You have every right to be frustrated. But you're wearing that Indiana gear, and it's a proud moment.
All right, well, Ryan is here. He just showed up. See, the thing with Ryan is he doesn't need to listen to us speak, but now it's his turn for his comment, and he's ready to go. You ready for your intro? Wait, we'll let Galen, do you want to give a couple quick thoughts?
Not really, no. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out, and gosh, that's really about the only positive thing I can say right now. So it's great to see you all.
Yes. All right, Ryan. Here we go. Come out. Well, Ryan, unfortunately, there is a lot to bring up. What would you like to choose?
We're already, you guys are already on a lot for sure. I think that really important for me was seeing guys struggle and maybe make good plays and good decisions and not be and that really kind of because I felt like this was a very wonderful game that had certain starts to especially got to 6. Really had a chance to hammer through. And you guys were there, you noticed that crowd was ready to explode. They were waiting for an excuse to explode, and it just didn't happen. And every time they got really close, it just was awesome. It was really long way. There just wasn't a flow of the game really helped that team this team rock. And I think that there were certain players who were bad stretches and we shouldn't have had it. And it's such an emotional day for everybody. I think that the coaches that need to be a little more on the game, get the guys out really sharp, get you guys just get them moving. There was times where it just stagnated. Get rid of the group that they really kept the pressure on play. What I will say is I think that it's a great day for the program in certain respects. I think we can get rid of that. It's a very so
Oh, really?
Yeah. So those are some of the
It was like just running by on the floor and just say,
it's guaranteed. You know, it was just such an awesome day. I don't know if you were there. I was so emotionally drained after halftime. It was just such a weird, such a draining experience and really cathartic in a lot of ways. And then to try and get back up and get to see you win, it was a real struggle. And I don't know, I just think this team, I'm just 16 by being fair enough. And so we're going over the last 7 seconds, and now we're losing streak. And it's shaking up the schedule so and you really got to figure out where they're going to find this and to me, the younger guys have to step up. I think that's probably where we're going to find this season. Our runners to step up. We only saw a bit of race off today, but we have to step up and start taking some shots. Because those are the guys that can line and feel and used to be able to line up that to me was a big takeaway today. And some of the other guys are just not going to be able to count stretch. And the other guys doing mid-selling stuff.
So look, obviously that was a tough game. We'll break it down now. We're going to do some interesting observations that we had from the game. But let's look forward for a minute before we look back, because we kind of came into this game saying, it's not a must-win, but it's about as close to a must-win as you're going to get on February 8th, given
especially against your especially against your rival at home in this
But let's look forward. So where does the team go from here? So obviously the game against Iowa on Thursday is going to be huge. Coach Andy, as we were walking back, the one thing that we were encouraged by, which I mentioned earlier, was that stretch in the second half where we ended down by 16 points. And they went small. I think it was Rob, Armand, Jerome, Justin, and Trace. And they went on a 7-2 run, got it back to 56-50. They weren't able to capitalize and take it further than that. But, Coach, do you think it's time to start going smaller more and start playing? We know how important Jody's been, but it also felt like today, maybe it was part of the matchup. It felt like today the offense moved a little bit better and things were just a little bit more crisp. But not getting out with a little bit of a smaller line. Is that something that we're going to see more in the future, or we should see?
I would like to see the smaller lineup a little bit more. I've been clamoring for that at the beginning of the year. And it took a step back when I realized that two of our better players are post players. And so Archie put his better players out there, which is what Ryan is saying he needs to do. And yet it clogs up the lanes. And then there's such an emphasis on getting the ball into the post that the guards aren't cutting it, as you said, Purdue did. The offense is so geared to feeding the post that teams are scouting and taking stuff away. And the other thing with the small lineup that is confusing or perplexing to me is who are you going to play? Because I agree, there are some guards that don't deserve to play as many minutes as they're playing. And if you go small, now you're looking at, do we have the players in a position to play small and play it consistently over time and have Joey only play 14 to 18 minutes? Is that something Christian Steph's going to want to do? I just think from an offensive standpoint, eventually you just can't play two posts forever. So I would like to see it. Coaches get stubborn. I was talking to you guys about that. We get stubborn in what we like to do and what we believe in, and we just keep forcing it until it happens, and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm not sure that's good coaching, but he may stay with it because to honor Joey's attitude and effort, as opposed to playing people who don't deserve to play because of their lack of attitude and effort, because you want to go smaller. That's just real easy, a tough position.
I thought Jerome Davis really well when he was in there today, especially defensively, and we didn't get back in the angles. That really shocked me. They were doubling hard in the post, and Jerome is a great passer out of the team. Joey is not. I was really surprised that they didn't go back. Frankly shocked. And they really went smaller, and they were trying to trace the 5 more. But, it's some of those points where things got slow, and they were doubling hard in the post, and trying to throw the rest of those passes. And there were just some decisions in this one I didn't quite understand.
Well, I think Jerome playing better unlocks the ability to try to play small, but the bench is like inherently playing small suggests you're going to hold your guards and you think you're playing really well. And as Coach mentioned today, whether it was a year or using the walk over, they just really strong with the guys who go from confidence perspective, youth, whatever the case may be, it's hard to say, I don't want to play this guy because if you really want to look on this today, I'm going to go out to the playing well. you know, have a temper and lead with that. And so, part of playing small is you got to have guards that you can trust. And I think there's nobody playing consistently in that there right now. It's a really beautiful. I think Jerome was the one that really kind of jumps out and brings it alive. And how intuitive he is, and how athletic he is, and you see him really starting to have that kind of form that everybody expected him to have early on, and then to sit out there, to be able to get it. So, and he does not lack the comments. I would rather have a lot of other options, so we got that people that are down no matter what. So
I will lose with a guy like Jerome. I will lose with Jerome. That guy plays hard. He plays great on both ends of the floor. He'll make mistakes. He's a freshman. He's talking. He's basically a true freshman. And that's a guy who gives it everything he's got. He's trying to focus his teammates up. I mean, I'll lose a guy like that. I mean, bring him on the floor. Give him. I think we're all saying on the team. Play him 25 minutes a game. Play him 4 minutes. Yeah, and that's a guy who I do not. When he goes on the floor again, you'll feel good about him making mistakes because he knows what they're bad.
One of the things you got to look at is I wonder if Rob Tennessee's on some minutes restriction. He usually comes out regularly and sits for a while, and you're right, put it back in, put it back in. I still wonder his health situation and his conditioning situation, because if he's only allowed to play a certain amount of time, that hurts his organization. And I thought Jerome Hunter almost, he was so tired at the 8-minute mark, there were some stuff that didn't work out at that time. The coaching staff was talking to him, and he came out right after that. I thought he was either vanished or lightheaded or something. He fell back in the huddle and someone had to grab him, and they kept him out there. And he immediately came out, and that's when he went on the bad run from 6 to 15 when those other guys were in. So two of those guys that we really like to see out there, I think, are not yet able to play 30 or 35 minutes health-wise. We just don't know that, but it looks to me like they are both on some sort of can't go all the minutes that we would want them to go.
Well, in short, though, I just feel like today bad play was and maybe it is advanced, maybe it's whatever. There are guys making stupid plays who stayed out there. I don't think we're calling up a 3-pointer. There was a timeout. It was too bad. Foul. We couldn't have that situation.
You always disagree with coaching anger. I mean, that's just you one way, I believe the other way. And I'm with you. I've seen the cheer. I agree, and I'm retired. Right? So I'm with you on that. The problem is strengthening is so. I mean, it's a tough thing because I do agree with you guys. That's on
The biggest thing for me watching this game, especially watching the was, this is going to make me say this out loud. I'm sitting next to you. I don't want to praise Purdue, but offensively, when you watch them, you watch the difference between Purdue and Indiana. Everything they do is important. Everything that they do is crisp. And they are able to read and react and take advantage of situations. And when we're on offense, we don't do that. Sometimes it looks like we're figuring out what to do in the middle of the possession. And there are opportunities that we have. There was one drive Justin had. And you know what? He didn't have some success driving, but he had to outrun another one with the 3-point. Trace Jackson Davis was the one guy that looked like he was getting angry in second half. And we talked before, when Trace gets angry, he can go and run the 6-8 minutes himself and get up the guy and sit next to you like Trace is angry, he's eating. And Indiana scored like 4 straight points and come down. Trace is posting the ones that has it, and instead of getting at Trace, he shoots through. And it just feels like everything offensively is a struggle. And, Coach we talked about, obviously our guards are struggling and they're limited, but, for Purdue, Eric Hunter, Stephon Rich, Proctor, like, none of these guys are huge players, none of these guys are elite players, but yet they play with a different level of confidence and certainty. Alabama, really it seems struggled to get going into the game, and then their last couple possessions, you see him drive and spin and score and make a three. It's like, where is he? And so there's absolutely a different level of
confidence, belief, rhythm, all those different things that they have offensively. It's such a stark difference watching that and watching the way we play offensively. I don't know if that's a player issue, it's a coach issue. I'm sure it's a combination of all those things. But my God, I'm sick and tired of watching them play and saying I wish they played more like them. That's how I found myself feeling.
It's a confidence issue, and it's both. The message that Archie is trying to get across this part is not the
heard. So yeah, Archie needs to figure something out because the guards are not playing with confidence. They're playing very hesitant, which leads to casual play, and sometimes that's the coach. You got to find a way to get your guys to play with a lot of confidence. The Purdue guys are playing with confidence, and maybe it was that 19-3, game at Iowa because they've had some really bad games on the road. But man, they might have found it in that Iowa game. But those guards played with confidence. Their system has been in for 14 years. I said the older guys taught the younger guys. Carson Edwards taught Sasha Stefanovic how to cut and move. And this is a young program, but you cannot excuse Archie. Archie's get paid millions of dollars to win basketball games and get guards. But the toughest thing to do as a coach is to teach players who don't want to listen, who think they have the answer. And I'm very, as an educator, I don't want to throw out names here, but there are guys, I will, but Devontae and Justin, some of these guys look like they don't want to hear the message. And then it's ultimately the coach's job to try to keep pushing 19 different buttons to get it done. I would believe that Archie's on button 9, 10, or 11 right now. And they're all been
That
wrong.
low, huh?
And they've all been wrong because we're playing really, really poor. So the Purdue guards are just better because they're more confident.
Yeah, that's what I took away. I mean, we all watched them hit that many threes against Iowa and wanted to say they got them all out of their system, but confidence is a powerful thing for these guys, and that goes both ways. It goes in the way that I just made a whole bunch of shots, and you got Aaron Wheeler stepping into threes confidently, despite even after shooting well in that game, shooting 22%. And then on the flip side, I think you see how fragile IU's confidence is. Things start to go bad. These stretches snowball, so it goes both ways. It's not just that Purdue came into the game shooting the ball well, had a lot of confidence, and said, "Hey, look, we can go in here. There's nothing to lose," and do it that way. And IU, I mean, that's why you get these scoring droughts of whatever. There's a lack of confidence. And you talked about the passing, where our seats was kind of down at the other end of the floor that IU was going at the first half. And the one thing I noticed, it was multiple times, like you could see, maybe it was the angle I was at, who knows, there were passes to be made that either the team lacked the confidence to make or didn't see. And neither of those is a good thing, but there was, there was one where they had a lob to Trace, so you just gotta throw it. And there were other drives where it's like you've got to do that, and it has to really be part of what the identity is. There were multiple times you talked about the Devontae play. There was another one in the first half. Duran had really good position, and he goes and takes a sky hook essentially in the post. Like if your identity is going to be getting the ball inside, then that needs to be everything that you are.
And
it can't come and go because at that point it's not your identity.
And here's a lot of people say this, and I've coached enough. Well, coach, you got to give your kids confidence. No, players need to be confident in themselves. If you're a competitor, you're going to be confident, and regardless of what the coach. But soft players need the coach to give confidence. Tough players will be confident, and that's TJD. TJD was out there. He was talking to the coaches on the sidelines. He was talking to the players, and he's a freshman. And Joey Brunk, first year of the program, is the energy guy. There is a signal there, people, of why we have first-year players that are talking and doing things, and we have 3- and 4-year players who aren't.
Let's be real. Here it is.
That's so we need more tougher players.
Indiana needs dudes. They need guys who are just going to go,
But you still got to coach the right way. And I'll give you that. You got to coach who you have.
But that's just the beer talking, coach. Don't
start going
I'm
back
agreeing with
don't
Ryan.
start agreeing with him.
Yeah, it's really a bad stretch of life when you start doing that.
You're my guy.
I just think that, again, Jerome Hunter, Trace Jackson, you'll lose with those guys.
Yes.
Given effort. And Indiana needs to find more guys like that. I mean, let's be real. There are misses on this team and guys who just haven't performed the way they're supposed to perform and haven't lived up to their expectations. Yeah. And quite frankly, when you lose by what was the final score?
13. It was 12. Yeah.
Yeah, you lose by 12 at home against your rival in not a must-win game, but in a nearly must-win game. That says a lot about who's on the floor.
Yeah.
It says a lot about, the coaching staff needed to maybe change some things up, change the message, whatever. But it also says something about the guys on the floor. And those guys need to take if at this point in the season they don't have pride in what they're doing,
Right.
and they're not out there giving it, then quite frankly, it's on the coaches to not put them on the floor. I know in certain situations they have to put them on the floor. I get it. We're limited in certain player areas. But if guys aren't going to give you 100%, putting on that jersey, seeing what it meant today.
There comes a line. You guys talked about a red line a couple shows ago. And, Jared, you said practice was intense. I know we can't repeat what we heard went on at practice, but they had an intense practice yesterday where players were called out for their really ridiculous mistakes, and it didn't carry over.
And here's one more aspect of it. You had a week to prepare for this game,
Absolutely.
And that's what you did. You had a week to get better, and they didn't get better. If anything, they took a step back, and that's what's disappointing as a fan. It's disappointing if you're somebody who analyzes this team, watches this team, because you're ready for this team to take a step forward, and they just continue to stumble. And at some point, it's enough. At some point, you have to get better.
Let's talk real quick. Meaningful moments. It's easy to look at kind of what happened in the second half, but this game was lost for Indiana at the end of the first half. They took a 28-25 lead, and really it kind of felt like had a little momentum. What Duran was out there during that had really slowed down Travion Williams.
He was great defensively.
The reason and the reason why Purdue was able to go on this run is some of the things that Indiana has done well when they're playing well and that they're supposed to build their identity on really left them. Aaron Wheeler got wide open for 2 3-pointers, just miscommunications, and that was part of what Purdue was doing offensively. Is their offense was always one step ahead of our defense in the help, and so Wheeler got open a couple times, and then there was a play with a minute 45 left. It was 33-28, so we're down 5, but still it's like, okay, let's get a stop, let's go get this back to even or close to even before the half, and Isaiah Thompson missed a floater, and no one boxed him out. I think Devontae was the man who was supposed to box him out. They rebounded, they scored, they go up 7. I turned to the guy I was sitting next to. It's like, we're in trouble here. And, they ended up obviously leading by, I think, was it 9 at halftime?
Yeah.
Up by 9 at halftime. And those stretches, that stretch at the end of the half, they just never recovered. And then they came out the very first play of the second half. Was it Trace, I think? No Gel Eastern had the ball at the top of the key, and Trace just left him. And no Gel Eastern
drove
in the corner layup.
Thought the help was coming, and let's let him go.
Yeah, and so outside of that stretch, Indiana essentially played him even. But
honestly,
stretch right there is where Purdue
most
built their lead that they nursed for the entire second half.
The most disappointing part of that stretch for a team that is supposed to be built on defense and pride itself on defense was how often they got lost on defense and how often they weren't communicating on defense. They weren't helping each other pick up the right guy. It was, you're just seeing right there, like, this is what the program's supposed to be based on. And you're just like, guys, either you don't have the guys to do it or the message isn't getting across. Yeah. It's one of the two. We don't, see behind the scenes.
Do you think part of that also is, I think we got to give some credit to Purdue.
Purdue did a great job. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
There was one possession where,
I hate saying that.
Well, Purdue, they always do their dribble handoff. They've got Harms up the top of the key. They do this dribble handoff. And for most of the game, we were just letting them do it. And, one time we jumped the dribble handoff and actually forced a turnover. Didn't let them do what they wanted to do easily. So the next possession, Harms anticipated us jumping it, just went to the other side and slipped it, and they scored. And again, that kind of recognition and being able to, and I know that's, part of the sequence they have there, but, being able to recognize what happened, probably what we're going to do on the next possession, and just to go to the next option, that's what our offense is lacking a little bit.
Yeah, and I think also it's become readily apparent that whatever we're putting on tape, other teams are picking up very quickly and defending very well. And it's easy. A couple weeks ago, maybe about a month and a half ago, our inbounds plays, our under the basket inbounds plays were amazing, and we're doing great. We haven't gotten a bucket off an inbounds play in weeks. Wow. And it's like, hey, it's not working. You got to alter it, fix it a little, change it a little. Constantly be upgrading what you're doing as opposed to just running the same thing over and over and over again, because it's easy. It's clearly easy to stop. There's a team that's scoring in the 50s.
Ryan, do you think, too, defensively, I've been a advocate of this. I think some of the struggles defensively are playing 2 post players. When a lot of college basketball is a stretch 4, even 5s. Garza is hitting 3s at Iowa.
Best lineup today was with TJD at the 5. Best lineup, easily, with Hunter and Smith were both out there together for a little bit of that, and they had 2 guards, and they mixed in a couple different guys, but best lineup easily was Trace Jackson-Davis and at least one guy on the floor who could spread the floor. But make it Hunter, put him on the same wing so you can't double, throw it in there.
I agree, and it's tough because you got your 2 toughest guys play the same position.
Yeah.
And you got to get 5 guys out on the floor,
Yeah.
and you want to reward all the stuff that we're wanting to see. You want to reward it as a coach. So what do? You decide in the summer you're going to go to old man ball and play 2 posts. Well, now you're struggling defensively and you're struggling offensively because there's no driving lanes.
Well, they had to see the defensive struggles coming. I mean, you're getting Joey Brunk
and they made a choice.
hedging 25 feet from the basket.
They made a choice that's not working.
Yeah, you're going to run into problems. So, but that's on the coaches and the players to adjust and figure it out and get better. I mean, you should be getting better throughout the season. And quite frankly, I feel like this team stopped getting better a few weeks ago. I mean, really.
Yeah, the stretch that you mentioned, the other thing that really reared its head there, I was just looking back through the play-by-play, was 3 turnovers on the last 4 possessions for IU. And that was really, not that they had taken great care of the ball up to that point, but
they had 11 in the first half.
This team just isn't good enough offensively to be able to give possessions away.
No.
And so you can make up for some of that by just giving yourself a chance, but they just didn't give themselves a chance. I think there was 1 on a moving screen, there was a travel, I think maybe 2 travels toward the end. So that was just the other thing that really kind of came up to bite him. It was they weren't even getting shots while Purdue's going on that run toward the end of the half. Like you just couldn't even. I mean, they got 1 shot in 4 possessions.
Yeah,
you're just not going to be able to come back that way.
All right. Well, this is normally the point in the show where we talk stats. Is anyone interested in a successful breakdown of this game?
Not at all. No.
Let's give out some game balls, and then let's move on and talk about some more pleasant subjects. And this will probably be pretty quick. I mean, there's really only a couple guys I think that you could go with. You could talk Trace, you could talk Jerome, I think, for game balls. Andy, or you could say no game ball because we lost to Purdue on the day that Bob Knight came back to Bloomington or to Assembly Hall.
I struggle to give no game ball. I'm also struggling to pull up the actual correct box score here on my.
I could take a spot. Trace Jackson Davis gets my game ball. That's the guy.
Second.
All right.
I would give Jerome honorable mention.
Yeah,
I just
me too.
thought he was a guy that really stands out.
Yeah.
And we talked about this on the way over here. Like, there is, I think, in a lot of ways, a talent deficiency on the roster that maybe we haven't. We did this last year. I think we maybe didn't do as bad a job of it this year, but I think you see the idealized version of every guy.
Yeah.
But when it really boils down to it, like you kind of got 3 dudes. And one of those is Finney at this point, who you feel
we
like
got him saying dudes, everybody.
Is hurt, and so I really think Jerome stands out. I really think if this team is going to turn things around down the stretch, he's going to be a really big part of that because he provides flexibility in the lineup that nobody else really does.
Yeah.
But he can guard different positions because he's got good enough size. He can score different areas of the floor. And again, to go back to the confidence thing, like that is a guy who has a lot of confidence. He lets every shot go like he thinks it's going in. And sometimes you need guys like that. This team doesn't have guys like that. It's pretty much him. And
at the very least, when you put a shot up, you might get an offensive rebound. It's better than turning it over or just not getting the ball off. I mean, at least you shoot it confidently. You've got Trace Jackson Davis down low. Anything could happen. You could get a bucket off.
I always think it's going in when he shoots it.
Me too. He's got a good shot.
I would hope that he has a little north-south game too, because we're missing that north-south aspect. And that's another reason, the Proctor kid at Purdue, sneakily good at getting in the lane. Hunter can get in the lane. And right now our guard play is so poor that they're not getting in the lane to cause the defense any decision-making or put them in rotation. And the only rotation we're getting is a double in the post.
Yeah.
And then when you don't have good, kickouts, it becomes a real tough offense. But Hunter is really good. And when he's healthy now and developing his conditioning, he's going to be a huge part of whatever we can do down the stretch.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about floor spacing, I mean, we mentioned this again on the walk over here. I mean, there's possessions. Purdue just got 4 guys just hanging out in the paint.
Yeah.
So you couple that with you don't have a ton of guys who are great straight line north-south drivers with the fact that there's not any space to drive it anyway.
Yeah.
It is not good. And so he's a guy that, again, unlocks flexibility because he's a guy they've got to account for on the outside, and there are not enough guys on this team that fit that description at this point.
All right, well, let's switch gears here a little bit. I think we've exhausted every possible angle of that game. And
Who wants to relive any more of this game?
We don't want to talk about
okay.
that anymore.
All right,
so
we're on the same. We're all on the same page.
So we're going to rotate some other people in here. Let's start. I think the Hysterics guys are here, and we want to bring them up. Come on up. While they're coming up here, I do want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank Galen, number one, for helping us get this set up. And frankly, for helping to inspire this entire podcast, because he was the first one, the godfather of IU sports podcasters. I want to thank Joel. Where's Joel?
He's over there somewhere.
He made the food. If you haven't gone back there and had some of his pulled pork, some of his mac and cheese, unbelievable. And definitely want to thank the folks at Switchyard for letting us do this, for giving us this opportunity. Really appreciate that.
Well, I don't. Everyone who came, hello, thanks them.
Hey, we did that. We did that, but you were late.
You're right.
you
I
missed
was
that
late.
part.
I apologize.
Saving the
everybody.
best for last. And everybody who's here in person today, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming out last night, for hanging out with us today, and just for watching the show and being supportive of what we do. We really, really appreciate it. Because without you, we're just four guys staring into our computers talking after IU games.
Yeah, that was a rough couple years when we were doing that. It was.
Yes. All right. So with that said, let's bring Eric and Ward up here. Let's get their thoughts.
Here I come,
Yeah,
Mrs.
take the two.
Tonsoni.
Come on up, guys. Eric and Ward, Hoosier Hysterics. I assume everybody here is subscribed to the Hoosier Hysterics podcast by now. An unbelievable event that they had at the Bluebird. And now they're here.
You go, boys.
To talk about this game.
Are we on right now?
I believe the mics are hot, yes.
Oh, shit. Oh. This is fancy. We're not used to this kind of fancy equipment, right?
No, not at all.
There's a board.
There's a board.
Can I press a button on the
You're
board?
live on television too.
What happens if I press the? It's like a Rubik's.
It's like Simon Says.
Simon Says.
Yeah.
What happens if I press the red button?
It'll play the Crimson Cast intro music. There we go.
There you go.
So you guys had great seats, obviously, today.
Yeah.
Up close
Thank
and
God.
Pumping up the
Thank
crowd.
God we had great seats
Best
for that.
seats for the worst game.
For the worst game, but for the great moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think let's put the game in the rear view. The thing
Have
that we're
to
all
thank you
going to
for that.
remember, those of us who were fortunate enough to be there, that was an incredible moment. For me, being there when Calvert Trainee broke the Big Ten scoring record, some of those moments, this is right up there. I mean, this is a moment that has been 25, 30 years in the making. Huge. What was it like for you guys? I mean, being there, seeing it up close.
It was totally surreal.
Yeah.
When the players started coming out just one by one and hearing names that we didn't know were going to be there.
That was a shock.
Jay Edwards.
Jay Edwards
was there.
Andre Patterson.
I know.
I mean,
How excited was Dick Vitale that Andre Patterson was there? Did he talk about the Duke game?
it was just a surreal moment, and just we were lucky to be just as close as we are to this front row.
I kept checking you guys out, and I was like, I was way up in the media seats, way up high. Just like,
it was just an incredible emotional thing. And then we're trying to capture it on our phones.
Not
too.
me.
No.
I would just get Eric's video.
Yeah.
But I was conscious of that because I wanted to be in the moment also.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, I stopped when Coach walked out.
Yeah.
And it was emotional. I teared up.
Well, and I will say for the event at the Bluebird, it was just trying to make sure something didn't kind of go wrong and it went right. So I couldn't really have an emotional reaction like many people
it's different
did.
when you're in it, yeah.
But being able to be there and observe, and when they played the video, I lost it. And it's such a beautiful thing. And then to see Coach out there going through the gamut of emotions.
Yeah.
It hit him really hard. He got pumped up. He was getting the crowd pumped up. Like, that meant so much. And then to see the players, their faces looking at him. Joe Hillman was losing it. And I was like, oh, come on, Joe, you're killing me.
And then for me, it was seeing the guys lead him out too. How much he meant to them, clearly. Quinn and those guys leading him out the tunnel and helping him. And I mean, I was so emotionally drained at the end of half. I was like, we got another half of basketball, and it was, and you felt like after he left the floor, the entire crowd was kind of like, I mean, they were ready to explode once the game started again, but it was almost
they needed a moment.
They needed a moment to think about what they just saw. And somebody on Twitter said, this is something I never thought I'd see. It's like, I just saw it, and I still don't think it's something I'd ever see.
I'll need to watch the game later when I get back home.
And just sort of take it in.
Yeah.
Fast forward.
We got
halftime.
Coach coming back means so much to so many different people and for different reasons.
Yeah.
We got a letter after the event back in November from a Hoosier, grew up, born and raised in Indiana. I'm not going to give out his name. Moved away and has lived his later years in a different state. And he reached out to us and sent us a message that said, seeing the video of Coach Knight surrounded by his players at the event and surrounded by IU fans, I'm going to get emotional talking about it, was something that he wanted to see before he left this earth.
Yeah.
And he is dying of terminal cancer. And he said that now that he saw that, he could go in peace. That's what Coach Knight means to so many people. And to be part of a moment where you know that that's what it means to people is there's not really good enough words to really put it into context.
Well, and I think for this town and for this university, it was just such a cathartic experience that's been literally 2 decades in the making. I mean, like, there's been so many chances that they've reached out and they've asked him to come back and they honored him and did different things, honored his teams, and just waiting and waiting and waiting. And I think that a lot of people made peace with the fact that it was never going to happen.
Yeah.
And then, a couple weeks ago, there was this news that, oh, wait a minute, it might happen. And then, we obviously heard whispers this week, okay, now it might happen. And I think everybody who was, I'm over it, went very much to, oh no, I want to see it, you know, and just being around town and being around IU fans last night, everybody's like, well, did you hear that there's, and it was this excitement that hasn't been in a long time because it was such a moment that means so much to not only this university, but this state, and honestly, the college basketball, the way ESPN was covering it, it's more than an Indiana story.
Yeah.
It is a national college basketball story. And it meant that much to a lot of people. I think that was what I took away from it was it's not just a moment for these people in this arena, as you mentioned so eloquently about your event in November. That meant a lot to people who weren't there, people who maybe didn't learn about it till the next day. It meant so much, and there's just something about that reunion that is, I think, a wound at Indiana has been closed officially.
I hope so.
Maybe we can all heal officially.
And all of that said, I couldn't help but notice the juxtaposition of the play from the team in the first half and the second half, which did not in any way resemble a Bob Knight team, and almost felt in a way, and you see all these guys come out that you have these great memories of playing basketball a certain way and coach, and it's almost like they were coming out representing a different program than the one that we're cheering for right now. It's the same in
I want to tell that story.
Color, it's the same in arena, but I guess my question is, and we know that it means so much to people like us and to the gentleman that you talked about. What, if anything, tangibly do you think it means for the program moving forward, like in actually us playing better basketball or getting back to play like that? Will it have an impact there?
I think it can. I don't think it automatically happens.
Of course.
I think that if this leads to just more embracing in a way that just tangibly has not happened, of the former players, bringing them in, letting them interact with the current team, letting them be around practices, letting them speak to the team. We are in a weird place where for 20 years we haven't had the players who could put their arm around a kid and say, let me tell you what you're playing for.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of guys that live around the area, the Matt Novers, the Lindemans, even the A.J. Guyton, who's just a few hours away.
Yeah.
It's not hard to get these guys back. And we need them to continue to impart what that means. And then I do think, we talked to Matt Nover about it, we talked to Kirk Haston. They tell us it is tangible. Kirk Haston came from Tennessee. He had no allegiance to Indiana.
Yeah.
He came here and he said, I didn't get it when I got here. But when I met these players, when they were coming to practice, when Isaiah Thomas shows up to practice and strips A.J. Guyton of the ball,
And dives on the
story
floor.
is great.
then you know what it means. And then you realize you're playing for something more than yourself. That's what it has to mean. If it doesn't, then we're just any other school.
Well, and let's go to the sleeping giant analogy, like this fan base. Like, look at this.
Yeah.
Is there any other school in the nation that misses the tournament this many years in a row, that struggles for 2 decades to just be relevant and still has 17,000 people show up
Just
ready
think
to
how
go
many
crazy?
Indiana basketball podcasts there are that survive.
Right.
That tells you how good the fan base is.
And
When the apocalypse comes, there will be an Indiana basketball podcast left afterwards.
And that the apathy that ultimately would be the death of the program, of the fan base, it's not there yet. And when something like this happens and gives us all something to give us hope, to remember what it was and what we all want it to be again, hopefully this buys more time to get the product on the court that will reinvigorate all of us and the younger generation.
Well, and it felt like two eras of Indiana basketball were divorced from each other. As
Yes.
you were saying about the players coming back, and it felt like we were either on this side or you're on this side, and there's no in between. You either are have an allegiance here or an allegiance here, and you're not allowed to cross
But
over.
even over here, it's Samson, Green, and and now Archie's regime is so relatively young. It's like that's all fractured.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of continuity there
Agreed.
of those players coming back. But this is something where both who's in the stands and on the floor, hopefully that just makes a continuity.
It's one line now. It's not a line to stop and then a new line.
And
It's
I heard just from people talking, Coach spoke to the team.
he did.
And you guys talked about that already?
No. I read that. Yeah.
He went to, and I heard from somebody around the court that said he said to the team, go beat their asses. And it just, you could hear Coach saying that. And
He's
it didn't
sick and
happen.
tired of losing to Purdue.
Right. But the fact that he was able to do that, and maybe it's not the only time he'll do that. I do want to share one story that bothers me.
Yeah.
We were talking about it on the way over. I will not name the player, but anybody who has been to a game at Assembly Hall, if you stick around after the game, it's common for the players to come out, take pictures, Minutes after this game ended, which I couldn't hear everything you guys were doing. We came in a little late.
Yeah.
The worst loss of the year,
unequivocally.
So the worst loss of the year, the most important loss of the year, most important game of the year. Minutes afterwards, there's a player that's part of the main rotation that is out there on the court, still in his jersey, yucking it up. I mean, laughing, having a good time. And I don't expect these guys to oh hell, the sky is falling.
I do.
But I could not help myself but thinking, if Bob Knight was the coach of this team, do you think that kid would have been allowed out to just yuck it up? And it pissed me off. It was just...
They might have had another practice.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
They would have cleared us out so they could run sprints.
And I don't know why that all happens, but it's more than just Coach Knight showing up. It's about getting it.
You gotta care.
And we don't get it yet as a program.
Well, and it's harder
And
now
it's
because
hard.
all the kids got their phone. They're checking their likes right after the game's over.
Well, but they should check our stream and
Well, that's
we want
fine.
that. We want
That's
them
fine.
to like
They want to listen to
our
the post-game
videos.
show of Assembly Call.
Yeah.
But it's something where that's where maybe those former players can come back and be like, look, put down your phone for a second and look around.
Experience this loss with your teammates and make it so you don't want to feel this again.
It shouldn't mean more to us. It shouldn't sting us more than it stings them. They're the ones out there. It should sting them a little more. But I mean,
to be fair, we don't know how the other players were responding to it, but
no
certainly-
player should be out there yucking it up.
Certainly, watching it on the court, you got that feeling. Like it's not that guys aren't playing hard. They're giving effort. They're playing hard. They're obviously working hard, and they want to win. They're just not able to do it right now. But I think what you guys are hinting at is, for a long time, there's playing hard, there's effort, and then there's that next level that makes it special.
Yeah.
And that's what Indiana always had, from a physical toughness standpoint, from a mental toughness standpoint.
You're working out
It's what we
hustling,
don't
Ian.
see right now.
No,
and I
and
think it's that's
the magic
what we got used to seeing.
And I do think it was that every player who wore that jersey, for the most part, I'm sure there's exceptions, of course, they knew they were playing for something greater than themselves. They were playing for this. I mean, they were playing for the fact that the amount of content that you guys put out on a weekly basis, for how long you've been doing it. What is it, 9 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what fan base has that? It is incredible. Crimson Cast, Hoosier Heartland, all these things. That is what they're playing for. We were saying it's trippy to come back and anybody know what we're doing because we're just in Ward's garage. But as we're walking in to Assembly Hall, we get this really sweet woman who's clearly in her 80s stopping us to tell us that she loved watching us.
Tricky demographic.
And yes, it is. We do very well with that. And then students who listen. And you want the students that are here that weren't even alive when Coach was here to feel more of what we felt in that first half and halftime when the crowd was in it. It's special. There's a buzz.
Yeah.
And it's just, we just can't get there yet.
Yeah, I mean, that building, for a big game when the team's playing well, there's nothing like that building. There just isn't.
Nothing.
And nothing in college basketball. I remember I'm going to just drop this name. You can pick it up later. When I was talking to Jay Billis about it, he said there's no better place to watch a game either. He's like, whoa, Cameron. Because he went to Duke. Well, he went to Duke. He's got to say.
What is Cameron, like 5,000
I know.
people?
I was recording him at the time, so I think he had to save himself.
Yeah.
But he said there's nothing like a big game at Assembly Hall. There's nothing. And that's true. That guy goes to games all over the country. And he said there is nothing like a big game at Assembly Hall. And that's true. And like you guys are saying, there's more to this program than there are to a lot of programs that have a lot of success.
Yeah.
This is after a loss.
I know.
This is after a loss to our rival. This place is packed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. It's like, it is special. It should be special. And the players owe it to the program, and especially that man who was out there at halftime, to treat it special. And that's why it pissed me off to see somebody yucking it up minutes after a loss like this.
Well,
that's not treating it the right way.
And Mio is trying to bring Eric back from the ledge. I looked across the court during the game, and there's Anthony Leal with his parents. And I'm like, I know that guy gets it. I know that's a guy, and hopefully Trey Galloway, and even somebody like Jordan Geronimo coming in from across, from the East Coast, that Archie understands. I think he feels our pain the same way, and he's looking at these guys and being like, guys, maybe some guys need to understand it once they get there. Yeah. Somebody like Anthony's going to come in, and he was there today, and he was born and raised as one of us, and that's just so vital to get it back to where it needs to be.
Sure.
Well, guys, I know that you've taken a position as roadies for Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Yes.
And so you're going to have to.
Yeah. I think we're in Atlanta tonight.
Yeah, that's right.
Bossier City, Louisiana on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think we're going to go to Panama City, too.
Yeah.
I heard.
Very nice.
I'm still high from that, and I didn't smoke anything. I just walked into the room.
But before we move on, I do, on behalf of everybody here, on behalf of all IU fans, I do want to thank you guys for what you're doing. Because, really, I mean,
Thank you.
There's nothing better than getting the stories from the players themselves and being able to have those stories and the expansive interviews that you guys do, the time that it takes to do that. I'm just really appreciative of it. And I've learned a lot about the program, about the players. And, I've been studying this my whole life, and being able to get the insights from the players that you guys have brought out, it's been amazing. And, I think your podcast has really been more than instrumental in bringing the program back together a little bit. And I think it's really important what you're doing. So I appreciate it.
You guys have supported us from day one all the way to having us up here today. And that's meant so much to us. And to be a part of the IU podcast community is something we never imagined a year ago.
I just thought there needed to be more California flavor. In
San Diego, baby.
Got to represent for you.
And to echo what Ward said, when we started back in Ward's garage, which we're still in, so we haven't really grown at all.
Clearly, you guys like Ward's garage.
We do like Ward's garage. It's very nice, but it's actually not nice, but it's cool. But when we did our first long form interview, I mean, even the AJ Moye he was one, and then Jeffries.
Mm-hmm.
Jared reached out to me and said, "Hey, what you're doing is great. I love this." And he had no reason to. And I think in another world, you'd look at it and go, "Oh, they're competitors." And Jared and Brian and Andy and Coach and Galen and everybody has never looked at us like that. And we would not have any support at all if it weren't for the tweets that you sent out giving us exposure to your audience. We would not have any exposure, any ability to get the interviews we did without you guys. And we are so appreciative of that.
So with that said, now we go out back and reenact the Anchorman scene?
Yeah, now let's go fight it out.
Wait.
I got my trident. I'm ready to go.
Stay off the face. That's the rule.
That's right.
No hair,
face
no
contact.
face.
Yeah, well, because you guys got a camera. You can go off on
Look at
our
this.
faces.
We're on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wait. Everybody should know that Hoosier great Brian Evans has a dance move.
He does.
And we can do it for the camera. 1, 2, 3. That's the Brian Evans wave.
Okay.
If you see him out tonight, which he probably will be,
he's
ask him to give you the wave.
Okay.
He's been working on it for 30 years.
And he'll be the first to tell you we don't do it justice.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, man.
Awesome
Thanks,
to have
Jared.
you here.
guys.
Thanks,
Keep
Ryan.
doing what you're doing.
Appreciate it. Thanks so
All
much.
right, so let's bring the Hoosier Hysterics, everybody. All right, Galen, come up here. And then do we want to do some audience questions?
Well, Jay's got a mediocre one for sure.
I know Jay has a mediocre question. So I want to get, Galen, let's get your thoughts on the night moment, then we'll open it up for some questions.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Here's the thing. I echo a lot of what everybody said so far on the show. It just feels like there's a disconnect, with IU basketball and the way that we are, I guess, historically used to seeing it play. I tweeted something out like the way IU approaches a lot of these games right now is the way that we as IU fans made fun of other Big Ten programs for approaching games 20 years ago.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of distinction in the way that IU plays basketball, and they played good in certain games this year. They won the game at home versus Michigan State. That was an enjoyable game. They figured out a way to win at Nebraska. There's been a couple other games like that, but by and large, it's been really rough. And we can talk about players needing to buy in, and I think players certainly need to buy in more, but it feels like there's not much of a foundation for this IU basketball program.
It does
right
feel
now.
like they're trying to run on ice a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when it works, it's fine. It doesn't work that often. And, I think the first couple of years under Archie, I was willing to be like, well, it's not really his roster. You're in year 3 now. You're halfway through the Big Ten season at this point, and it's like time to start answering the questions that have piled up for the first 2.5 years.
You just want to see consistent improvement, and you're not seeing it at this point.
Yeah.
I think you don't care if you don't make the tournament. I mean, you obviously want to make the tournament. If you're not making the tournament, but you look better and you look like, we're building towards something, then you feel better about where the program is. But to see these peaks and valleys, and it's up and down, up and down, up and down for 3 years.
You can have, and that's the frustrating thing. One of the things, if you go back and you read, I hate to pass all this through the lens of the Bob Knight era, but that's the era that 99% of the room is conversant with.
It's appropriate today.
It's very frustrating, for instance, in the Maryland game, to have your best offensive game of the season and lose because you gave up, 6 points in the last minute.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating to have a good defensive game and then not be able to score and end up losing as a result.
Yeah.
This is probably the worst of the losses, not just because it's Purdue, not just because Bob Knight was in the building, not just because of all of the buzz that was around it, but they never looked like they were in the game to begin with. And that's probably the most unpardonable of sins with IU basketball. It's why people wrongheadedly advocate for, play the walk-ons or play freshmen even if they're not capable of winning, because people just want to go out and watch people play hard.
Yeah.
Even if, and this was the thing about the 08-09 season, it's like people still look, and that was a terrible year. Awful. It was awful, but people look back kindly on it because that team looked like they were at least trying. And there's large stretches of this season so far where you're just not seeing that. And I think that for almost every program has an identity. IU's identity has always been built around this idea that the team plays hard, the team plays good defense, the team efforts and outsmarts the opposition. Not seeing it right now.
So, Galen, I have a question for you, though. You made your national television debut when Bob Knight was let go.
It's true.
You look a little different now. But he's
hair's
back.
A little longer.
What did that mean to you as somebody who observed, who was up close? I know you were on campus when it happened.
I was, and
both of you were.
I mean, I was the sports director at the radio station, student radio station, my senior year, and that was when Bob Knight got fired. It was so. I want to say this: the idea that this was Bob Knight's first time back on campus is a lie. It's bad research. Bob Knight's been back on campus multiple times since then. He got shown around the athletic complex by a coach of a different athletic program at IU like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
He's had dinner at Topo's, which is a block down the street, before he moved back. Like, the idea that this was his first time back is wrong.
Well, we've heard about doing private dinners and stuff.
100%. But a lot of people are under the impression like, and this was even said on the broadcast by Bob Wischusen, this was his first time back on campus. Wrong. But it was his first time back in the building.
Yeah.
That's important. And it was interesting watching it, on television and just kind of seeing everything. It was touching. It felt like, for those of us who had lived through that era, particularly those of us who were children in the 70s or 80s or 90s, that this was something that's needed to happen for a long time. And I don't blame IU for it not happening up until now. They've made plenty of effort to make it happen. And I also, I understand the psychology of Bob Knight and why it's taken this long. And look, the fact that he came back at all is surprising, given this man models himself after George Patton. Like you have to understand that element of his mentality to understand what makes him both great and what makes him flawed.
Yeah.
But it was certainly a very touching moment. Just like, and I don't know if Eric and Ward left already.
They left.
But the moment at the Bluebird a couple of months ago, I was fortunate enough to be there. I was in the green room with Bob Knight. When he was getting ready to go up on stage. It wasn't something I expected to see when I was there that morning, but there's been a real sense of closure to that aspect of things around this basketball team, and that's been gratifying to see because it's been needed for a long time. And I think closing that chapter, and I think that today closed that chapter to a large degree for a lot of people, is important from a psychological and emotional perspective. It does nothing to change the reality of IU basketball and where it's at right now, but it does do a lot, I think, for people perhaps to be able to just put that to the side for good.
Yeah. Finally, it's over.
And that's something that I think was valuable and important, and I'm glad everybody worked as hard as they did to get it done.
No, and I thought we talked about it, but I thought that all those players coming back, they knew how important this moment was.
That was amazing.
And it's important for them, too.
Yes.
I think that I feel bad for a lot of the former players, particularly.
It's almost like they had to pick sides.
100%. I mean, people now, it's 2020, people forget how fragmented it was in 2001, 2002, 2003. I mean, it was a war zone. Not just online either. I mean, it was
I came to school right in the middle of that,
right?
And I was like, why doesn't everybody like each other?
Yeah.
I hit campus in 2003, and that was the middle of the bad era, the beginning of the really bad Mike Davis stretch.
And the thing is, there'd already been some fractures as early as the mid '90s, and there were people who wanted to move on from Knight and go a different direction, but most people were supportive of Knight. And the way that things went down, I mean, I think you can make a very valid argument that things needed to change at IU, but the way that it happened satisfied nobody.
Yeah.
The aftermath satisfied nobody, and for an IU basketball program that, frankly, in its history has been ruled by these big troughs of kind of wandering in the desert with these, artificial peaks that happen in the middle of it, this was the worst thing that could have happened from a cultural perspective. And, so it's good to see that finally start to get closed a little bit. I mean, it's never going to be like it was from a mindset perspective. That was an almost unduplicatable era.
Yeah, of course.
And from the standpoint of the way that fans view IU, it's been 20 years now since people had, the attitude that they had about IU basketball at the time. But I think seeing Knight back in Assembly Hall and his reaction to me felt genuine.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like he was genuinely happy to be there. He was genuinely happy to acknowledge the crowd. And that was not, I mean, I think if this happens 10 years ago, I don't know if you get that. So to some degree, the timing was almost about as good as you could get it, all things considered.
All right, so let's do some audience questions. If we have some folks that want to ask questions from the audience. Let's also give away some shirts. We have some shirts that we can give away, right? So
our guy
Connor from Home Field Apparel. Okay, so let's think of some good questions that we can use to get some shirts. So, did anybody here come from out of state? Is anybody here from out of state?
Don't ask Madeline.
Okay, Kent is from out of state.
Yep.
Kent gets a shirt. Kent gets a shirt. Where are the shirts, Connor? Are they over here?
Got them in a box over here.
Yeah. How many people do we have from out of state? Raise your hands.
We got a few people from out of state. Suddenly we have a lot more people from out of state than we had before.
So that they know there's going to be shirts.
Out of county is not the state. Lawrence County is not out of state.
Yes, if you came from out of state, you deserve shirts. So come on up here. Connor brought some shirts. I don't think he brought the oval shirt.
What do we got here?
Hey, where are you from? Tucson, Arizona. Okay.
That's a long way to go.
That is a long way to go. Sean Miller basketball camp? Okay, well, worlds are colliding here.
All right.
Very nice. That's right.
Definitely counts.
Andy's from Cincinnati. That absolutely counts. So we got Tucson, we got Cincinnati.
Or you want me to stick up here?
A lot of good people from Cincinnati.
Yes.
There are many.
We'll get coaching. Well, actually, we're going to need a headset for questions.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, so where's Jay?
Jay, we need a mediocre
because
question.
we have to kick off the question. Do you remember which button is?
I believe it's the blue
questions?
button. I believe it's the blue button.
This blue button.
Let's
right
try it.
Oh, here he comes.
Here he is. Howdy, everybody. This is Jay Horry.
Wow, I never thought I'd be here with you guys.
We've been through a lot together, Jay. So
First time, long time. Is that what we're doing?
Something like that. Yeah.
what's your mediocre question?
You
Jay?
Do we really have to talk about this, or
It doesn't have to be about the game. It can be about anything.
I want to know.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all, out-of-staters.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, I don't know if you guys talked about this before, but I want to know what's your first IU basketball memory. And I'll start.
Yeah.
Mine was the 1992, because I was 5 at this point. So I'm a lot younger than you guys, obviously.
You are, yes.
As everybody can tell.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna relay the story of the bartender when Blasco ordered a drink earlier, and
How
then
dare
he
you,
had you
sir.
turn around. I said I wasn't gonna relay that, so you're good.
Mine was the 1992 Final Four loss to Duke.
Wow.
Which even then I remember the officiating being atrocious.
Yeah. Things have
and-
not changed.
Yeah,
little John Clockerty action in that one.
Not unlike the Big Ten officiating nowadays, but I'll hang up and listen. Thanks, guys.
I'll start on this because I have a similarly not ideal memory. It was IU losing to Virginia in the 1984 regional final.
Yeah.
I, for whatever reason, don't remember the North Carolina game, which happened 2 days earlier. It would have been a tremendous first memory. But, yeah, I distinctly remember Olden Polonese scoring points and beating IU. I do the second memory though is the chair toss in the '85 season. I guess I was 5 at that point, so it was. That's weird that I have a loss and I have probably the most infamous moment in IU basketball history as my two memories. So there you go.
Couldn't you have asked for our happiest memory? Because my earliest memory, because it was emotionally scarring, I guess, for 7-year-old me at the time, is the Illinois game where Jay Edwards hits the amazing shot. I know. He hits the amazing shot over the backboard, but I don't actually remember. I've watched video of it, so I remember it. But what I remember of actually being there and watching it is the shot Nick Anderson hit to win the game and being devastated. So absolutely devastated, and not even at that age, not even knowing how to process it. I think I cried.
You were there.
I was there.
So I was at my house in Battleground, Indiana, and the previous week had been the Michigan game. I had gone and hid in my parents' bedroom, and instead of watching the game because I was so nervous, and then Jay Edwards hits the 3 and everybody explodes and I run out. I was like, what happened? And then I did the same thing in the Illinois game, so I missed the Nick Anderson shot.
Lucky you.
I heard it, and it was bad. It was not a good memory. Anyway, go on.
I mean
everything up until then is great.
There's a certain level of irony that we were at Nick's at lunch yesterday, and they were showing some show on BTN about that Illinois team, and so I got to relive that shot even just yesterday, which was just as terrible as before. For me, I'll try to get a positive one. I mean, I definitely remember the '87 championship, and I remember my dad picking me up and hugging me and watching the game and doing with that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing for me, this is more general, but my dad is the one of my parents that went here. My mom didn't go to college, but she is anybody who watches games around our family would say she's the one that is the most over the top at this point. So I remember times on Big Monday and Super Tuesday, stuff like that, where there would be games, and I would try to talk him into staying up, but then I would end up going to bed, but I would typically be awoken by my mom pounding on the coffee table, getting excited about the game, and then I would go out and watch the rest of the game. I remember the Alford shot against Michigan at the buzzer at Michigan where he ran off the floor and stuff like that. So mine are generally positive.
We have a phone call.
Okay.
We have Jason Kennedy,
the legend Jason Kennedy.
I want to see. Let's see if we can make this work. Jason, go ahead and let's give this a shot.
Okay.
Long-time listener, first-time caller to the show. Love what you guys are doing. Great stuff. Wonderful. I'm glad you came out to see your fans. Love the echo, too. That said, horrible game. I can't believe you did this pod. I assume you're going to delete it immediately.
This is
after
show
all
business.
that. Yeah, it is. It's called show business. You're pros. God love you. We're big fans.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. We appreciate
caller all the way from the bar.
That was definitely
literally a 20-foot phone call. Just tremendous.
I found myself yelling. The call is coming from inside the house.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it is. We did have some conversations about. Wow, we really have to podcast after that? Because we set this a couple of months ago as a date. We're like, this would be perfect. They're coming into town.
Yeah.
Let's make this. What do you do? I mean, I was thinking about this with IU basketball, and you guys started in 2011?
Yep, 2011.
Which was like the perfect time to start.
The best time to start.
Because, you had the 11-12 season, you had the 12-13 season. Scott and I started Crimson Cast in 2008. No one listened for like 3 years. And when people started listening, it was great. And then, still people don't listen. But it's like.
You say that as if people were listening to our show when we started, but I appreciate you treating it that way.
I mean, no one's going back and checking those traffic numbers, Andy. No. But it is complicated because podcasts, people listen to podcasts, I think, because they want to hear fun, exciting, positive things about their team. They want to interact with people who also are excited. And I think we look at other programs that are successful and they have those sorts of experiences. Like if you're doing a Virginia podcast last year, you're having a tremendous year. But it is difficult because we want to have an honest conversation with the fans, and we're going to have honest conversations with each other about what's going on with our teams. And I know you guys don't really tackle football that much. We tackle football a lot on Crimson Cast. That's been a tough row to hoe the last decade. This year was great.
Yeah.
Like this year was. This
Things
is
are looking up.
It all paid off. This was amazing. But it is challenging sometimes when the times aren't as good as we'd like them to be.
It is, but it's people showing up.
Yeah, this is amazing. That's
what makes it worth it to do. All right. Does anybody else have questions? We got the mediocre question. It lived up to its billing. If anybody else has questions,
you got a question? Come on up.
Kent, come on up. Yeah, come on up.
Absolutely.
And then, Libby, we might ask you to come up here later. We have to get your reaction to Coach Knight coming back. So think about it.
Can introduce yourself for everybody. Yeah.
I'm Kent Davis
The
from
great
Atlanta,
Kent
Georgia.
Davis
Thank
from
you.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah. So my question is, so you guys may know that we had Carter Witt in for an official visit.
Yes.
And so, he's the whole point guard that's very good at seeing people like 2 or 3 steps ahead, but he's not a good shooter. And potentially getting him would maybe mean that we wouldn't get Christian Lander. So my question is, after today, and I guess just the way the season's going, would you like to get him? We still don't know if he's going to be 2020 or 2021.
He's a good guard, yes.
Yeah.
Get him.
Yeah,
I mean, we need playmakers.
Yeah.
We need guards. I mean, obviously, we want guys who can shoot, but we need playmakers, and we need guys who can run an offense.
At this point, IU basketball is like the New York Jets or the Cincinnati Bengals. Like you just.
That was a shot at Blaska.
Sorry, Blaska, but it's
complete
true.
shot.
You can't draft on need. You have to get best available player. And look, I think if you're gonna, there's certainly some criticisms you can levy at Archie Miller about his roster construction so far. The lack of guard recruitment is a problem, and the fact that there's only really 4 functional guards on this roster is a problem. You got to try to address that because you're going to lose at least one of those guards to graduation this year. So even if it's not a completely perfect fit, I think that you remake the team based upon the roster that you have available to you, but that roster has to have guards on it.
Yes.
And so I think you take the best possible player at that position, and then you let the chips fall where they may moving forward. Because as we saw last year, a lot of people thought, they'll pick up Lester Quinones in the spring signing, or they'll pick up this player or that player, and none of it actually happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that if this is going to be successful, IU has to avoid that sort of scenario moving forward.
Yep. Right. Agreed. Feel the same way, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue in a game where we were like, we should go bench a bunch of guards, and then we talk about how there were really no other great options to turn to, and then say you turn your head at any competent playmaker from the backcourt.
To your point on a guy like Lander, who obviously is an in-state guy, and we'd all like to get him, but you can't just not take anybody and wait on that.
Because if he ends up in Louisville, then you got problems.
You just got to get, if you can get good playmakers, you got to get them. That's what this program needs. By the way, can we talk about how bad the uniforms are in this Carolina Duke game?
They're real bad.
They're awful.
This is when
what are they doing?
When marketing attacks. This is essentially what's going on in this Duke.
Terrible.
I mean, the uniforms aren't as bad as North Carolina this year, but
I mean, they're up 10 points right now. I mean, that's unlikely to last. But
yeah.
Thank you, Kent.
Yeah, thanks, Kent. Appreciate it. Let's get our next question up here.
All right, we got to work.
We got plenty of time.
We'll
get a rotation going.
Yes.
Hey.
All right.
Hello.
Hi.
My name's Luke Newhouse.
Luke. Hey, how you doing?
Hey,
Good to see you,
I
Luke.
really have a question for you guys. Normally I ask them the fun question in the community, like, would you rather have IU not make the tournament and then make it every fifth year or whatever? I ask that question.
Those are fun questions.
But challenging. I don't really have one that's fun like that. I can't think of one right now on top of the head. But I just want to thank you guys for what you guys do. You guys and the President Pavass and Ward and Eric and all them. I really appreciate, because it's good to sit there, because I drive around my car all the time for work, and I get to listen to there are games like today. I was super mad after today's game, and it was horrible. But listening to you guys makes me feel a little bit better, because there is a community, like you guys say. So
wow.
I just want to thank you guys for what you do. I do appreciate it. So I know we're the reason you guys are here, but you guys introduced me to a community. I just found out about you guys a year ago, and I just love you guys. So I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so much.
We really appreciate it. We it's always weird because none of us do this professionally.
Right.
When people come up like, hey, I listen to you all the time. Well, I'm sorry, Andy.
Is that not what?
That's not.
Is that not what we're doing?
Jen, I thought he had a real job.
No.
I'm sorry.
No. All my eggs are officially in this basket, so we're good.
In all seriousness, it's gratifying and also a little off-putting when people come up and say, "Wow, we listen to you," and we really enjoy it, and I appreciate it. I know these guys do as well. So we appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I'm glad we could make it worth your while.
Okay, I guess the only question is there someone else that IU's looking at for next year besides the three we already have? Do you guys know of anyone?
I mean, there have been some stories about some JUCO guys that we're looking at. We'll almost certainly look at the grad transfer route, because we just have to get guards. And Galloway, Leal, Geronimo, they're wings, and they have some things that they can do, but we need guys who can handle the ball.
Definitely.
So I think definitely whether it's trying to get a high profile guy in that class like a Carter Witt, or trying to get a grad transfer like Jahad Proctor for Purdue has been a guy. He's been a little bit up and down, but now that he's kind of integrated into the system, he's been really valuable for them. And that's the kind of guy that really would have helped out this team this year.
Definitely.
And we swung and missed, but hopefully
it would have helped out too.
Well, yeah, but hopefully this well.
We go back and forth on this.
Hopefully I don't know if you guys saw the article saying that Trace Jackson Davis definitely says he's going to be back next year.
Yeah, that's
I don't know if you guys saw that. There was a post.
I saw it. You never know until it happens.
Yeah.
This is the thing. I mean, it's
last time
February. It's February 8th, and things can change between now and then. But
is he or is he not on a 2-year plan? That's really the question.
Yeah, I would.
The last time Ryan said someone was on a 2-year plan, it didn't work out quite so well. He's over there at the bar now.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
No.
Well, thank you, Luke, so much for listening.
Appreciate the kind words. Appreciate coming out.
Thank you. Absolutely.
I'm gonna use that a little bit because I don't know how long this person can stick around, but I'll try to keep it together while I have this conversation. But for those who don't know, Jared is one of the nicest people you'd ever meet. So there's a gentleman over there named Andrew who is here because Jared was nice enough to send a care package to his wife who's going through some things, and so he is nice enough to stop by. So I'll give you a break if you want to go over there. And
where's Andrew? Over there? Yes. Okay.
He's the most well-dressed person here.
All right. I will.
Not wearing home field apparel as best I can tell, but incredibly well-dressed compared to the rest of us. But anyway, so he introduced himself to me. I wanted to make sure that he could talk to Jared, and just a good chance to say what a good dude that Jared is. How many days till football season is the question. Galen, this is right in your wheelhouse.
A lot. It's like a solid 6 or 7 months at this stage. We still got baseball season in front of us. Let's focus. Let's give credit where credit is due. Absolutely. And softball just got started yesterday or 2 days ago, I think. Didn't have the greatest start, but hey, it's okay. It's an early part of the season. Do we have any other questions? Would anybody like to come up and ask? We got some time.
All right, come on.
Ari, come on up. Sure.
This is a little self-serving, but I wanted to ask you your favorite OG Anunoby moment and thank Assembly Call for all the writing they've let me done. It's been such a great experience.
Awesome.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, this is Ari, who's done a lot of the features on former IU players in the NBA. So he's gotten, I'm sure I'll miss some of these, Thomas Bryant, OG, which was potentially the greatest interview challenge that anyone could be given, to be able to get more than a 2-sentence answer out of him.
OG doesn't talk that much. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Great player, great dude, but
really good guy.
He's terse. I think would be probably the best way that I could describe him.
Best OG moment. I mean, there was a couple of those dunks when he would just like take off and like go down the lane and just windmill hammer somebody. Although I would say probably from a important standpoint, it would be defense he played on Jamal Murray in the tournament, blocking the one shot in particular that I can remember. And at least from a meaningful game standpoint, that's the one that comes to mind most immediately.
That's the funny thing about OG's career at IU is that there it felt very compressed because there was a large section of the year that he really contributed where it didn't seem like the team was going anywhere, and then suddenly they did. But I don't know. I mean, that you look back at his career numbers, and I'm trying to jog my memory here, frankly. He had a pretty good first couple of games of the tournament. You mentioned the Kentucky game, the Chattanooga game he was very good in. But, man, I don't know. It's as much as OG Anunoby has blossomed in the pros and as much as he had individually good games here at IU, it was like it was a fleeting thing. You felt like, wow, I wish
you knew that it was there, but you just didn't ever get the chance to see enough of it, whether it be injuries or different things like that.
Absolutely.
I would agree with that.
So
other questions at all?
Ken Bykoff's here. Hi, Ken. How you doing? You got a question? Come on up. Okay, let's make this happen.
I thought you were going to make Ken come up and
I
ask
was
a
not
question.
going to. I would never force anybody to ask a question on a podcast.
He just raised his hand, and then just immediately you're like, "Why don't you come up here?"
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, man?
Hey, Galen, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Cheers.
Salud.
Salud. I have two questions because I missed the first half of the show.
Okay.
So can't really hear back there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've covered this or not. Where are the next wins in the schedule? We've got 8 games left, right?
Right.
We've got 4 home, 4 on the road. Indiana still has a chance to make the tournament as far as I'm concerned. But where do those wins come from? Because I could see them going 0-8 in the next 8 games, the way they played today.
I would like to think 0-8 is not going to happen, but I could not with complete certainty.
After last year, you can't.
I could not with complete certainty tell you that wouldn't happen. So here's the thing: the next win almost has to be on Thursday when they play Iowa, because if you lose that game, you're riding a 5-game losing streak, traveling to Michigan and traveling to Minnesota
at that point.
And then you've got the Penn State game at home, and then Purdue and Illinois on the road. That's a tremendous.
Well, we can go ahead and knock off Purdue and Illinois on the road.
I don't entirely know if I agree with that, and here's the reason why.
Okay.
This sounds weird to say, but the Big Ten is strange. Like, we like to think of everything as linear. It's like, oh, Team X won on the road at Team Y, therefore they'll win at home against Team Y. That's almost never how it works. We've seen, I remember the Fab Five lost to Northwestern on the road in a random game, and everybody's like, well, how did that happen? That's the Big Ten for you. So I'm not willing to write off the idea that Purdue could just throw a stink bomb up at Mackey Arena. Probably won't happen, but IU beat Illinois on the road last year. Illinois,
but this is totally different Illinois.
Are
team
they?
Than last.
They are a talented team that's relatively young. I don't
put Galen in the uncomfortable position of having to advocate for.
I'm not advocating for anything, but I will say that you asked where the wins are going to have to come from. I said they have to win against Iowa, because if they lose against Iowa, they're now 5-8, and that puts you in a position where essentially you have to win 5 of your last 7 games.
Yeah.
And that's a really difficult spot to be in, because that involves having to win on the road. And so I think they're going to have to win one of those 2 road games, whether it's the game at Michigan or the game at Minnesota. And I think both those games are winnable if this team can figure out how to pull itself together when bad things happen. And I don't know if they're there yet. What do you think, Andy?
I think I agree with what you said. I think the Thursday game becomes really important. So for as much as everybody could kind of waffle back and forth of whether this was really a must-win, I think the Iowa game definitely falls into that because I don't think
the Iowa just lost by like 900 points at Purdue. So let's keep that
there
in
you
mind.
go.
You know?
So I just struggle to think. I mean, when you watch, we talked about confidence and different things like that earlier in the show. Nobody wants to think too much about last year, but it's hard not to have that in the back of our minds as fans to say, hey, if things really start to snowball, what happens? So I think they need one to stem the tide, and hopefully that comes on Thursday. I would say, Michigan beat Michigan State today as best I tried to look at game results after we got here. The part that was on when I was here earlier was unwatchable. But
it got slightly more watchable and then became completely unwatchable.
So I do think, Michigan's got some struggles, although Livers was back today, so that's a big factor in that game. But I think Thursday becomes a really important game for IU, which, given Iowa's talent offensively, gives concerns. But given Iowa's similar propensity to completely go in the tank defensively, maybe that's what this offense.
I don't think defense was.
That's what this offense needs. I don't know.
I'll say this: when IU had lost their 10th Big Ten game last year, no one thought they were going to win again the rest of the season, and they ended up winning 4 out of their last 6 or something, 4 out of their last 5.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Well, that's the weird thing
Yes, it
about
would be.
this roster construction is that it's not entirely impossible, and you could get that kind of bounce where the team suddenly recoalesces with each other and figures out how to play. But it's hard to envision it right now, and I don't want to be positive. I really don't. I'm really angry. Like I'm about as angry as I've been at IU basketball in 3 or 4 years right now at this very moment.
It's sad that it's not longer. It's really sad that
I
it
know.
hasn't been longer.
That's the other thing. But
I can't imagine how Scott is feeling though right now.
Scott actually texted me earlier. Scott Caulfield, co-host of Crimson Cast, and said, I am in the I'm not watching this team anymore mode of my mindset. And so he's just not watching at this stage. So I'm having to absorb all of it. That said, I can't completely write them off the rest of the year simply because we saw last year where it looked like they were completely dead in the water and they figured out a way to come back.
So I sat in the balcony today, and based on the looks of it,
did you pay $300 a ticket?
I might be the only one that sat in the balcony today. No, I got one more right over there. I got one more right over there. Okay, 2. Okay, either way. So the folks in the balcony on the younger side, they're already on the Archie head train. They're ready to call for Archie to go. So this is my second question. This is where I'll leave you guys. But
these have been really uplifting questions.
Sorry, I realize you guys are a positive podcast. I'm a first-time listener, first-time caller. Thanks for having me. I'm still upset about the Tom Crean fire, to be completely honest.
Wow, okay.
I don't think he should have been let go. This personal opinion.
Do not bring that up to Coach. I had that conversation with him on the way over. Do not bring that up to him.
I won't bring it up to him. But I would love for you guys to assuage the fears of the people in the balcony who are upset and ready to see Archie go, because I don't think I'm ready to see that happen yet. But if you guys love the comments on that, go right ahead.
You take it first, Ryan.
Okay. Archie is not going anywhere for a while. Financially, there's no athletic director. Financially, it's not happening. He will be back next year no matter what. There is no, unless he gets hired away somewhere, he's not coming.
I have a theory on that.
I know you do. We've talked about it, and I think it's pretty crazy.
We're not enough beers in to get that theory out.
Yeah.
Yet,
So Archie is not going anywhere. I know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for people, he's not going anywhere. His contract is at a point where IU is not going to let him go. Now, after next year, if things have not gotten any better, I think that's when you start talking about it, and that's where it's realistic. You can start talking about it now all you want. I'm just talking about where it's realistically going to happen. And again, there's not an athletic director yet in place. And so the athletic director will come in and next year, I think, spend the year, I would imagine analyzing all the programs on campus, not just basketball, and making decisions about the future. So, yes, it's fair to start asking questions about this program. I've said that for weeks. You're not seeing the kind of advancement and development you want to see, whether that's some of the players holding the team back, whether that's the lack of development from the coaching staff. It's hard to say. It might be a combination of the two. But as we're sitting right now, today, Archie's going to be back next year. I mean, regardless of what you think about it, he's going to be back next year.
I agree. However, I'm going to say this. any students, any alums who are actively questioning what's going on coaching wise right now should.
Sure.
Because at this point, and I've been one of the biggest Archie Miller defenders in the podcast bubble, and I've done it because I felt like there needed to be a foundation laid, and all of the evidence leading into this year was like, this is the guy that can do it as much as anybody else.
Yes.
But I don't care who you root for, whether it's IU basketball, whether it's North Carolina, whether it's any other program, like, until you start seeing results, there's literally nothing to base your faith off of. And I think you're right. I don't think any changes are going to get made. And I don't think you're going to see any real movement, even in terms of like people thinking about it at the administrative level, because I think Archie Miller is respected within the athletic department. I think people understand the reality of the situation that he inherited. But man, even with that,
it's fair to start asking questions.
There is very little forward momentum in games that matter, and that is a real concern. And I think for people that are like, well, this is really frustrating, yes, there's a lot of roster issues that need to be actively questioned, and I think people need to look at that. But at the end of the day, as much credit as we give coaches when things go well, you don't get absolved when things are going badly.
No, of course not.
In your third year, just because everything's not lined up perfectly. And I think that's people who are actively questioning these things, I think they have a reason to do so.
Yeah, and I would not be shocked if we see some staff changes in the offseason, some new blood being brought in.
I want to say, though, to our friend who asked the question about Tom Crean, this is a guy who missed 2 of the last 4 NCAA tournaments that he had a chance to get into, and nearly got the program on probation from the NCAA tournament for APR issues. So, there's been this romanticism that's erupted around the Tom Crean era, and man, step away from that.
Well, and during Crean, there was a romanticization of Kelvin Sampson as well, and there were, so that happens. And
the Kelvin Sampson renaissance has been fascinating.
It really has.
This last couple of years.
Nobody ever questioned that guy's ability to coach. It was other stuff that was the problem.
There were other things, yes.
So I think that, again, realistically, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Whether there should be discussions of it or whatever, I mean, that's fair. As a fan base, you can always talk about that, and you can always discuss the issues with the program. And I think there's ways to sort of patch holes where I think there are some. I think that, again, I think there needs to be some staff changes. There need to be – he should bring in – and I've said this last offseason. We discussed it, and we all kind of agreed that bring in an offensive coordinator. Bring in somebody to change what you're doing offensively, because clearly it's not working. It's not creating forward momentum and progress, and it's not sort of developing on top of itself. So maybe you bring in somebody who's, this program has resources. Go out and find the best of the best. Bring in what you can and try and improve it. Because, and I've also said it, if you love your job here, you need to work and scratch and claw tooth and nail to keep it and to get better and constantly be improving, because, it's a situation where at a major program, you don't show progress the way you need to, you're going to be gone. We're an instant gratification society. So,
but it's not instant gratification. It's year 3.
Well, I know, but I'm saying they're not going to wait 7 years.
There's an effort deficit. You guys talked about this in the first part of the podcast. When you get your team completely outworked on your home floor by Purdue, who's not a good team this year. So I saw some Purdue people walking in. You're not a good team this year. You might make the tournament, but barely.
This isn't last year's Purdue team.
When you get outworked by this Purdue team and it results in a double-digit loss, that's a real problem, and that's not something that you can just explain away by saying, well, I don't have all of my players.
Yeah.
I think we touched on this a little bit when we were texting during the game, but at some point are there enough guys buying what Archie's selling at this point from a roster standpoint? And I think that's where you start to get a little bit concerned. And so I think, Galen, you put it well. When it's okay, it's acceptable, it makes sense to ask the questions that people are asking, because like it or not, people look back at how things went last year and they immediately take what's happened in the last couple of weeks and spin that forward to, there's nothing that I've seen this year that tells me that a similar collapse down the stretch and performance like that is not a potential to happen again.
We're going to wrap things up here because our next event is about to come up. And first of all, wanted to thank Switchyard Brewing Company for hosting us today. Tremendous
Yes,
throughout
thank you.
the course of entire day. It's been an awesome venue, so we appreciate Curtis and Kristen and everybody here for making this possible from a technical perspective. And thanks to all of you. Appreciate you coming out. We'd like to do more of these events in the future, hopefully under happier circumstances, but we'll try to make this a more regular thing. I think that, despite some of the less than exciting outcomes that IU basketball has seen, it's really uplifting to see how many people are excited about IU athletics and IU basketball in particular. So congratulations to all of you, and thank you for coming out.
I want to say real quick for Coach, for Andy, I know he has a microphone, but I want to speak for him, for
Typical.
Jared and myself, just thank you guys so much for all your support. Thank you for, we get messages on Twitter, we get people commenting, live chat during the show, all that. You guys are the best, and we're here only because of you. And we travel to come here, not to go to a game, not to do a show, but to meet you guys and interact with you, and it is the greatest part of what we do. So, and also thanks to the Hoosier Hysterics guys who were awesome on the show. So thank you guys so much. It means so much to us, and that's the best part of coming here is getting to meet and see all you guys.
Yeah, and lastly, I will wrap with I would echo what Ryan said, but special thanks to Galen for setting this up. I came over here earlier, clearly having no idea how or if I could actually help at all. He was nice enough. He didn't make me feel dumb, but knew that I was not going to be of any use to him whatsoever. But he got all this hooked up, worked on getting the venue. It's hard when all of us are not here. So he was kind of the person on the ground. So we appreciate you and everything that you've done. We really appreciate it very much. And thanks everybody coming out. Look forward to chatting with everybody, drowning our sorrows a little bit more after the game, and we'll go from there.
Thank you
thanks
guys.
everybody for coming out. We appreciate it.
We'll catch you folks on the flip side. So long, everybody.